Time for Nick and Friends yet again. Oh boy, still having the echo problem. Oh well, nothing I can do. This one is with Rob, and I met Rob in 2016 on my Frisbee team. He drafted me to the San Francisco Beach League. And I was 26 at the time and was really quiet and kind of shy, but was having so much fun at these games. And honestly, I don't really remember how Rob and I were drawn to each other. But one day he invited me on this camping trip up to Crater Lake in Oregon, and then to a different volcanic national park that I'm blanking on the name of. But we went with two other guys as well on July 4th weekend, and had a super nice time, even though we forgot to book a campsite and spent 2 hours in the car one night trying to find a hotel. But again, it was July 4th weekend. We called 30 hotels and they were all booked up. Ended up just driving into a random campsite and hoping there was a spot open, and found one, and we did. But ever since then, Rob and I, little bit by little bit, started hanging out more and more. And Rob's one of those people who I kind of rely on in a way to get me out of the house a lot and go out for bike rides and stuff. And I've gotten to know Rob a lot better over the years, just tossing, bike rides, hikes, disc golf in particular, and definitely one of my best friends. And we moved up to Seattle around the same time. We'd both been talking about it for a while, and still hanging all the time, which is great, because you never really know how a move can affect a friendship like that. But in any event, we did this Nick and Friends podcast, and we're going on a big bike ride tomorrow morning. So Rob wanted to get a good night's sleep, so it was only a 45-minute roughly interview, which is totally fine. But this was a good one. So here is Rob.
Yes. Hello.
We were boys being boys, but for the podcast, we're going to be men being men.
Reinvented the wheel.
Okay. Well, Rob, we only have 45 minutes, so let's get these shots
What
down.
a shame. Well, why do I get less time than everyone else?
Yeah, I guess that's just purely my decision. Podcast integrity. Definitely not something you requested right before we started.
I demand to be invited back.
All right, here you go.
These are so cute.
I know. I got them right when I moved in, and have never used more than two at a time. I don't know. I figured I might have a party one here once, but
It doesn't
it's
even
not ideal.
look or feel like a full shot.
Might not be,
Yeah.
but
It's good. It's good. Because we're waking up tomorrow.
yeah.
Oh boy. Okay.
All right. I feel like this will be a good question for you right after we cheers.
Jazz.
Thanks for coming on Nick and Friends podcast, Rob.
To the boys.
To the
Seattle.
boys. To Seattle.
No regrets. This is exactly how we imagine Seattle.
Yeah. Wow.
No differences.
That is funny. It was good for a minute or two, though, right?
Fuck me. Anyway, okay, yes.
All right, Rob. Can you scoot in a little bit?
Yes.
Thanks. Okay. Rob, what was your greatest athletic feat?
Boo. Okay, there's two that kind of come to top of mind. One is, you know what? Actually, I don't know if it's athletic feat, but it's being able to go from being solid 280 chunker in Texas to moving up to Canada, and be able to not only kind of like get rid of all that weight, but then also be able to be somewhat good enough at basketball in order to go and play at the college level. Albeit it's college level in Canada, so that's completely different. But for kind of a normal person like myself, yeah, that was a really big deal, which you don't really appreciate until later on in life when you're like trying to get out of bed in the morning and everything hurts and you can barely crank out like a 25-mile bike ride anymore without things hurting. So it is really interesting because like now that you look back on it, it's like, wow, when we were younger, we like had so much going with our bodies and like everything came so easy, and it would just be so nice to like appreciate that in the moment rather than just always be on the grind of like, what team am I gonna make? Like here now with the scene in Frisbee, like how many more years are we gonna be able to just like sprint up and down the field without too much care, you know? So yeah, I think being able to play quote unquote D1-ish basketball in Canada would definitely be the tops. And then being on the team that won Canadian Nationals for mixed ultimate, even if they won it half a year after I left for California.
Oh, I see what you mean. Wow.
So
should have stopped the story short.
Being able to be on that team, being able to be like, I think, an integral part of that team, and then only having the misfortune of having left for California to start a new life too early to actually be able to achieve that gold medal. Yeah.
Okay, so and you don't think that translates to you getting a spot on Pegasus?
Well, why are we here just coming out hot with Pegasus? It's everything I want. You can't walk in there and be like, hey, there was this team I used to play for, and they won gold medal after I left. So, you know, yeah.
The logic doesn't totally check out, but there's a snippet of logic you have to admit in that. So I've never really asked you about this. So like you're talking about, you know, moving to Canada from Texas and like being overweight at the time. Is that something that you just like naturally grew out of and worked off the weight of, or was there a time when you were really like, I'm gonna work hard and lose this weight?
I feel like we definitely have talked about this before, but it's definitely a little bit of A and a little bit of B. It's definitely, looking back now, I definitely understand why people are overweight like they are in Texas and southern U.S. and now most of America as a whole. It's definitely a like culture and community thing. So there's like no place to really lay judgment on people. It's just it brings up more the question of like how do we change communities and how do we help improve habits overall. In terms of me, yeah, it was definitely like the community you surround yourself with, because in Texas I was average. You know, I was like encouraged to consistently eat. We were told to go to the cafeteria as many times as we wanted during the day, and the coaches would throw down their credit cards for us without any question. And
That's so weird.
And the cafeteria food in Texas for high school, like, it's chicken fingers and fries. You know, it's all the stuff that high schoolers want, all the stuff that high schoolers don't need. And then Canada, it's just a whole 180 where nobody in high school is overweight. Their biggest football player is 50 pounds lighter than I am.
You have to pay for the spinach yourself.
You gotta pay for the spinach yourself. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, and just seeing it's like portion sizes are smaller. Everyone's just healthier. Even in Winnipeg, where you can't do anything for 8 months out of the year, people are somehow still more active than people in San Antonio, which is kind of mind blowing now. Yeah.
It is kind of cool how like in Seattle, you know, like people don't necessarily hibernate, right? Like, it's not like you don't see people for months and then you come back and they've, like, gained some pounds here and there over the winter. Like, people still, I don't know, people just keep it up somehow. Everyone's got Pelotons these days, I guess.
I do appreciate that you, like, look out the window.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, just...
look at this shitty Seattle weather. It was just like the most gorgeous day of the year.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know, it's like looking at, like, yeah, this city's in San Francisco too, but, like...
No, definitely more here.
Yeah.
Well, it's because it doesn't rain as much in SF, but, like, I'm thoroughly impressed by the people here who... And I don't know if you've kind of acclimatized to this too, that at this point you're just like, yeah, I'll go out, do whatever, I don't care, I'll get wet, that's cool.
Oh, yeah.
It's it's a different culture, and I really like this culture.
I was having a lot of fun at Frisbee last night in the rain. Especially, it wasn't too hard, it was just a nice little vibe. But what's something you're better at than anyone you know? Just like people you know in your life personally. Just
one thing, or is it the classic question of like what two things put together are you better? Because one thing, I don't think anything. If I had to take a stab, I guess chess.
Sure, yeah.
It's chess or maybe Halo 3, but haven't played that for effectively years at this point.
Hey. We played a few months ago.
and we didn't exactly dominate.
Oh, man. I just thought, like, I remember when we were leaving, that guy was like, oh, yeah, Nick, let me get your email, because, like, we play much more frequently, and I just realized I haven't heard from him since then.
Did you not bring a good enough partner?
I mean, you and I were stomping. So.
Yeah, I guess at this point... It's probably chess or dog sitting.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any talent involved, but the desire is there. Yeah, I think I would have to go with chess because that's what I accidentally put the most time into, and it's fun.
How often do you play people in person?
In person? Oh, not that often, but I do want to more. Unfortunately, Frisbee gets in the way. But with like all this internet stuff out there, it's you're basically playing people in person when you're playing on chess.com.
How much of a red flag would it be if you played someone in chess and they were really bad, like stupidly bad?
Oh, most people I've played don't really know how the pieces move. So it's not really a red flag because it's
Wow.
Yeah.
My follow-up was going to be like, oh, if they didn't even know how to play, would that be a red flag? But
well, I don't expect people to know how to play chess. It is still a bit of a niche game.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Maybe that's like a point of privilege I should think about. It's like my mom wanted me to play chess growing up, and
yeah, I feel like it stems from certain demographics and households growing up, but if someone doesn't play, then it's like, all right.
I've definitely told you this anecdote, but it always stuck with me. When I was in college, as a freshman, me and my friend Brandon went through this big chess phase, and we'd play every day, and we'd like bring the board to the cafeteria and eat there. And play there. And one day, my friend had a friend visiting. It's like a friend that I grew up with, who was like a year above me at Humboldt. Anyway, he had a friend visiting, and they ran into us at the cafeteria, and he was like, "Oh my god, are you guys playing chess? Like, can I play next game? Oh, and I won't use my queen." And I was just like, "Fuck you!" Like, I obviously didn't say that, but in my head I was like, "Fuck you!" Like,
you gotta let him know.
That's so disrespectful. Like, what do I get out of that? If I win, it's like, "Oh well, you didn't have a queen," and if he beats me, it's like, "Wow, I suck." Like, why would I do that to myself?
Wait, so did y'all play?
No.
Oh.
No, I sent him away. I probably was like, ha ha ha, sure, but we're playing a game.
Go away. Yeah.
It seemed, I don't know, maybe it's just like his attitude, because it seemed like he came in and it was like a flex, not like a genuine like, oh, I love chess, like,
yeah.
I'd love to test myself. It was just like, you guys think you're good at chess? Yeah, wait till you play me.
Well,
I don't know. Maybe he took one look at the board and was like, "These guys suck."
how is this
Which
even
would be
possible right
really
now?
impressive. He's like, "You guys, how did you guys fuck this up so badly?"
Well, if you want, we can play, and I'm happy to take an extra queen.
Yeah.
would that help move the needle for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me just like my entire front row queens and.
Jesus. As long as it's like shot chest, then maybe.
What if like you played checkers on your side and I had chess pieces?
I don't know how.
So you can go vertically, basically. And if I happen to put a piece diagonally, then
then I'm just toast.
yeah. Rob, what's the best Harry Potter book?
Best Harry Potter book. Ooh. Book I really enjoyed. Oh man, I don't actually know because movies obviously that one. So, book I think we're going to go. Oh yes, screw it. I really liked Goblet of Fire.
Oh, let's go. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's so close, tied for me.
Tied with which one?
Well, 6 beats it out
6.
by just a little tiny bit.
Yeah, I was also kind of pondering 6, but 6 just makes me a little too sad. Yeah.
Dumbledore?
Well, I mean, yeah.
Maybe there was another character, maybe there's another part.
There's just something about the Goblet of Fire that obviously has all of the Harry Potter infused into it, but there's also like so much more on the competition excitement part of it.
Yeah.
I think admittedly it's a bit less of a story builder than a lot of them, but I kind of appreciate that because it skews a little bit more into the world of and correct me if I'm wrong, it's the last one with Quidditch. Is it?
6 has Quidditch at least.
Well, but at least with Harry involved.
Harry plays Quidditch in 6.
In 6?
Yeah, maybe he's like captain of the team.
Oh, well, yeah, but then he's old and everything.
But yeah, it's probably not like a huge part of the story like it is in the first couple
Okay,
books.
and Goblet of Fire has that really cute
Cho Chang?
Cho Chang.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's cute.
That scene where he's asking out Cho in the Owl Mail Center tower.
Yeah.
And it's like all just like one word, like, will you go to the ball with me? Will you go to the ball with me? Yeah, that's etched in my head.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the book ends sad, but it just has everything for me. I think it's the one that's kept me most captivated. Yeah, 100%.
That reminds me of the time that you told Vishal that I told you that I called stall on him, and then complained because he was being snippy about it.
You were so unhappy about that.
I wasn't happy.
How do you remember that?
I don't know. It's like it
Holy
didn't.
crap! You had a steel trap going on up there, boy.
All right, I'm joking. All right, time for shot number 2 because it's only been 15 minutes.
It's only been 15.
Yep.
Yo, how do people do an hour?
I don't know. I mean, the last ones I've done have actually been like an hour 20. Just
Rambling. Am I
kind of.
Am I supposed to ask you things too?
Up to you. I mean, no. I mean, you're not. But like,
Okay.
if something pops in your head, you can.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I'll keep that on the back burner.
Okay. How close have you come to dying?
Are we
Oh, yes.
jazz, huh?
Jazz.
To the boys.
To the boys. Boys and boys.
Boys. Boys. Woo! Wow, that one went up the nose a little bit. Cool. Man, I'm not young enough for this anymore. Close to dying, yes. Iceland.
I remember this.
Yeah. Probably everyone's heard the story at this point. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I went to Iceland with 4 of my better friends when I was still in Nova Scotia, including Tawny, who I think a lot of people have met at this point. And there was just one point we were doing a little hike and just exploring around near a pretty swift moving river, and which like dropped off into a 100-foot waterfall or so. We were just like walking along the bank. It was pretty steep. And then one of my friends, Kat, love her, amazing human being. She was just walking like 20 feet above me, really, and we were kind of parallel to each other. And she slipped a little bit, and this like good sized boulder came loose and started bouncing down toward the water. And everyone started screaming, yelling, and me being my unathletic self, tried to get out of the way, and it like clipped my ankle at the last minute. But just like that half a second between getting someone out of the way versus getting nailed by it and probably going into the river, and when you go into the river, you're basically toast at that point. Yeah, I think that was definitely the closest, because it was traumatizing enough that like Kat sat on the ground, crying for 20 minutes or so. It took her years to quote unquote forgive herself for that, even though it was an absolute freak accident. Yeah, and that's kind of the one moment that I still occasionally think about, which is kind of odd because it happened, I don't know, 8-9 years ago at this point. But I don't know if you get the same experience too, that like when you have those kind of things happen to you, just sometimes when you like either you wake up with cold sweats or something, or you're just like up really late at night and thinking about things, then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I could have died there. Yeah, fun times. Yeah,
it's kind of weird too, because like it's hard to kind of appreciate in the moment when it's like, oh shit, like could have stepped this direction, could have reacted half second later, and like just how it's not like you see it coming and it's like, oh no, the boulder, and you like process it for a second and your body's like, we gotta move. It's like you don't even,
oh no, the boulder.
Yeah, like you don't see it coming to an extent, right? It's just like you moved out of the way and it's like, oh, like I could have instinctively made the wrong move and that would have been it.
Yeah,
you don't even, I don't know, it's like you don't even see death coming. It's like that part of it never happens. It's just like, oh yeah, if I'd done this differently, it wouldn't have been that. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't even have the experience of being able to process how close it came because you didn't get to experience that. Yeah,
you have no clue how close you actually were to dying, apart from the fear in the other person.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also really interesting to think about, because you think like, oh, I could have been so close to death, but not to sound dark with this at all, but like, I mean, at that point, if I had died, then I had just died. It's like, I don't completely understand why it's terrifying to think about, because if it just ended your life, you wouldn't have anything to be terrified of. I'm not sure that's a really bizarre path to go down there.
No, I mean,
but it's like,
it is terrifying. It's almost more terrifying because like you want to attach some kind of like value and trajectory to your life, or like find some kind of meaning in it. If it's that plausible for it just to be like snipped away for some totally random innocuous thing, then that's horrifying in the grand scheme of things.
Well, but legit then, like, what this is, I think we've had this chat multiple times over multiple sunsets, over multiple states at this point.
What is the meaning of life?
What is the meaning of life?
Wow.
But it's legit, because like, if anyone dies because of a freak accident, if I died there, if whatever happens that someone dies, yes, they die. But like, when push comes to shove, it's the people who are impacted by their death that take the hit from it. Like, yes, we want to find meaning out of life. Yes, we want to explore. Yes, we want to do cool things. Yes, we want to go to these Frisbee tournaments. Yes, we want to go bike Glacier. And by we, I'm hoping that we're talking we here. But like, if that stuff doesn't happen and I just don't exist anymore, like, there's nothing in me that can be sad that didn't happen. It's just how it's impacting other people. So so that really brings back to the question, like what actually is the meaning of life? Is it to experience cool things and like do what you want to do? Is it to stash away a bunch of money until you can have a beach house on Mercer Island? Is it to marry rich so you can have a really easy life? Like,
something in between the lines. What you just said, I think.
You tell me, Nick. You tell me.
Yesterday, I was actually talking to Neve about this very subject, and I was telling them about this time when I was in 7th grade, and I was late for the bus, and so my mom was driving me to catch it, and we missed it at the regular stop. So she was like, Nick, get back in the car, I'll drop you off at the next stop, and then you can get on it from there. So we drive ahead of it, and we park like right behind the bus stop, and it was in a minivan. So I'm in the back seat, I open the door, I take one step outside, and we're like parked outside of the bike lane, essentially. So I open the door, I take one step outside, and the bus is just like and just speeds right like 2 feet away from my face.
Yeah.
And I remember, I don't know, I didn't even really process it. I just kind of like was like, whoa. Got back in the car, closed the door, and I don't know, I don't think me and my mom really talked about it. We just kind of kept driving and went to the next stop, and I got on. But it took me years to really think about, like, wow, that was really, really close, and that would have been it. And all I could think about was, like, how sorry for my mom I felt at the possibility of that happening. Like, again, just, like, some super innocuous things. Like, I was taking my kid because he was late for the bus, and then I was like, oh, Nick, get out, it's safe. And then just hit by a bus, and then just sitting there in the front seat, like... And I don't know, that resonated because you were talking about, like, death is not going to mean anything for us. It's going to mean something to the people that we leave behind.
Right.
So anyway, like, yeah. Anyway, super glad that didn't happen. Not for my sake, but for my mom's sake.
Oh, that's wild. Just, I guess, the one other side anecdote thing, I'm not sure if I've probably told you this story, you've heard everything, was when I was hiking after the Bunnock tournament. I just did a little hike on my own when I was going back to Calgary to fly back to SF, and it was like mid-September, so like peak grizzly season at that point, and it was just like a really foggy morning. But I was really determined to get a hike in because I'm like only here once and I want to hike. I want to see some views, even though there weren't going to be any views because it was foggy out. And I just like went off on my own, found a peak to climb that was somewhat on the way to the Calgary airport. Like started going up it. Every sign at the start was like, don't do this.
Yeah. Welcome to Bearville.
Yeah, like you're an idiot. There's like bear droppings on the ground. It's super foggy. It's like the perfect setting for any horror movie where someone sees an axe or something and it's just like, that's fine. Well, let's just keep going. I felt like it was on that level because obviously didn't have bear spray, didn't have bear bells, anything, because I was just coming back from the Bones tournament. But I kept going, and I was like, I'll just jog it out. It'll be fine. I put music on full blast. I think it was a little like T-Swift, so the bear would, I don't know, like vibe with it or something. I don't know. It was really, really stupid at the time. But you like get farther and farther up, and then you see more bear droppings, and they're like fresh and everything. And then you start to think it's a bad idea. But at that point, you're like too far gone. So you're like, okay, I'll just get up to the peak. Maybe there's a view from there. You get up to the peak. Obviously, there's no view because it's just like pea soup fog, and everything is just the most terrifying, like the most terrifying setup for a story that could go poorly. The only thing that was missing was the actual bear, and it turned out that there were two other people who I think were on like a second or third date or something because it was like cute and cuddly-ish, but it was also a little bit awkward, so you could tell it was early on the dating spectrum, but they for some reason were also doing the hike, and they had bear bells and whatnot. But more importantly, there were like two of them. So I like ran into them basically at the top and just kind of begged them if I could follow them on the way down. Didn't have to talk to them or anything. I just like followed them at a 5-foot distance, and they made a little bit of conversation. But then I got down close to the bottom. I just took off and ran to the bottom. I'm sure they were fine too, but like at the bottom, I popped out and there were camera crews there with CTV, and they asked if they could interview me, and they were just like, "Yeah, we wanted to talk to you because yesterday there was a lady who got attacked and killed by a grizzly bear here. So we were just wondering if you had any insight or thoughts on that, given that you were just doing this hike." And it's kind of just one of those like, oh shit moments. Like, so that was dumb. Confirmed that was dumb. If it had just been a day difference or a couple hours difference, you're toast for effectively being an idiot and not reading all the very clear, obvious signs that the world is telling you to not do this. Yeah, and it just really makes you think how many near misses that you've had. That if you had just taken a different turn one time down a street or something, you might have gotten hit by a car or accidentally shot. If you had made one different life choice, you would have been part of the like 10 million mass shootings. Sorry, not to talk anything up here, but just like how many small choices we make every day in our lives that lead us to X, Y, or Z, and how Z every single time could be a catastrophe. Just really interesting. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah. I thought you were going to tell the polar bear story.
No. Okay, there's too many near-death experiences. But
well, yeah, I don't think I knew about the grizzly bear one.
Oh,
so.
Cool.
Lots of bears.
Yeah, that's fun. Oh, yeah, bears, but we love bears, so it's okay.
What's the worst job interview you've ever had?
Worst job interview?
Mm-hmm.
It's probably... this isn't overly public, right? It's probably for the job I have currently.
Okay.
Because you know the whole setup for the job, right? Where it was like went on a trip to Alaska with a lot of my closest frisbee friends.
Right.
And like met a couple new people there, including Jess, who happened to need her dog to be watched because he just had back surgery, and so he was a poor little ruffian with a cone around his neck and everything. And I was just a grad student, and I like went to watch the dog and saw that she worked for Climate Works, and we like sat and had lunch, and she had funding, and so the job interview was effectively, it was like she had the job for me, and then I went into the office and interviewed with now two of my best friends at work, Kathy and Meredith. But I'll be the first to admit, they probably asked 4 total questions, and they were all softballs, and I failed miserably at all of them with just like the dumbest answers, because I did not come prepared at all, because I was like, I've got the job, we're just coming in, we're meeting some people, it'll be great, you know.
Do you remember what they asked? Why you want to work here?
No, it was even simpler than that. They asked something about keeping organized, and I said some really, really dumb thing about like I meant to talk about using like different colored sticky notes or something to like categorize what's important and what's not. But my brain just semi-functioned at the time, so I said something about like I like colors and just kind of stared blankly at them. Mm-hmm. And then there was silence in the room for a solid 10 seconds, and they were like, okay, cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure obviously they just extrapolated like what I'm sure they thought you meant. But I also think, I don't know, to me that's a very condescending question. Well, no, that's not right, but like, it's just such an easy one, and so I just don't think it reveals anything about a job candidate, because obviously anyone can just like, I don't really have any systems, but I'm pretty organized. So every time I get that question, I just kind of lie and say like, oh, I put sticky notes everywhere, and I use email labels.
Well, yeah, but to be fair, I had the job already and
Yeah.
just told them to effectively just
Yeah, I'm
throw me a couple softballs. But yeah. No, I totally agree. Yeah.
All right, time for shot number 3.
Holy crap,
Yep.
man!
Hey, you signed up for it.
I still have to go home. Ooh.
We were talking about Ted Lasso the other day, so
Ted Lasso!
Frisbee is life.
Oh. That show is, just side note, that show is so good.
It is.
It just, a lot of other shows I can be like, you know what, fine, that was a show, I can separate myself from it, but it just makes you feel things, like this vodka.
When I was talking to Jen this morning, she was talking about how, like, I don't know, she feels like she's settling for these, like, shitty guys. And I was like, hey, well, like, I've been rewatching Ted Lasso recently, and there's a really sappy part in it where Rebecca, the club owner, is, like, on a double date with Roy and Keeley, and at the end of it, she's like, hey, what'd you think of my date? And Roy's like, oh, he's fine. And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, you deserve someone who makes you feel like you've been struck by a fucking lightning bolt. And,
right.
And that's what I told Jen. I was like, I know it's fucking sappy, but, like, it's kind of true. Like, you really should be striving for people who make you feel good.
Oh, man. That's so good.
Yeah. Who's someone you once admired that you no longer do?
I won't go down that rabbit hole. Hold on. Sorry, I'm gonna have to. There's obviously who I no longer do. I don't know who I've lost respect for. Just for like you generally, do you think of this on more of a personal level or like a hero level?
I'm sure. Yeah, like if I really thought about it, I could think of someone personal. But like, Kimmy asked me when I was doing the podcast with her, and I talked about Louis C.K.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. That's good. Oh, there's so many of those,
types.
Stories out there.
Yeah.
There's gotta be a. I would definitely have to think on it because there's one answer that just keeps coming back, but there are so many of my sports heroes out there that you find out everyone for the most part is a bit of a scumbag, and you kind of know inside that they probably are, but as soon as that confirmation comes to light via like, whatever national news headlines, maybe a little bit Governor Newsom. Just because my experience meeting him at Climate Week in New York was he's got a lot of Obama in him with his mannerisms, with kind of his ideals, but when push comes to shove, it always sucks to learn that someone is definitely more talk the talk than walk the walk.
Yeah.
It obviously doesn't surprise you with any politician out there, but there's just something about Newsom where he was like governor of California. He is legitimately doing good work. especially in the climate clean energy space. But so much of it is more of, I'm going to mandate this for California as long as I'm not part of California. So from a professional standpoint, it's hard to say him, because I know he's going to run in 2024, and honestly would likely vote for him because I approve of so many things he's doing in the climate clean energy space. But from a personal standpoint, it is really nice when people agree to try to walk the walk also. Similar to like Al Gore owning 5 houses and then preaching to the crowd and in community truth. But that's an example everyone knows, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you felt this way too, but like, I remember very vividly in 2008 being able to vote for the first time and being a freshman in college, and everyone freaking out when Obama won, being like, Obama's gonna change the world. And then just kind of realizing like, oh, this is politics. This is like how the U.S. government works.
I still think for what he could do, I think he did change the world.
I'll take.
Yeah. I won't get political here for sure, but I will say being at a bar in SF, I think it was my first year in SF when someone else won the candidacy and people there just like openly crying.
Mm-hmm.
That just hits different.
Yeah, no.
That's something that just like sticks with you.
Oh,
But yeah. Do not want to get political at all. So do some.
What's the hardest you've ever laughed?
Can you think of one time specifically? Really?
Yeah.
Okay, you go first.
I was in 8th grade, and was having like a sleepover at my friend's house, and it was like me and my friend Alex and Darren and Justin, and we were making fun of one of our like old friends at the time who moved away. This guy Max. His family was really wealthy, and it was the stupidest thing in the entire world. Like, I don't know. It's not gonna be funny when I do it now. But we were making jokes about him complaining to his mom about like, oh mom, can you like buy me this island? Oh mom, can you like buy me this? Eventually it just turned into me making this voice that was like, Mom, I want peanut butter. And again, I don't know why, it was the funniest thing in the entire world. We were all like crying laughter, like laughing till it really hurt. Like Justin was telling me to stop because he was actually in a lot of pain, and I just kept doing it over and over. It got funnier and funnier, and it was like years later that I realized I was totally ripping off that skit from Mad TV, Stuart. If you ever watched that. Okay, well, it's directly ripping off that voice and that character. But yeah, I mean, that was also the night I was like, wow, I have best friends. This is what having like best friends feels like.
Yeah, that feeling is everything.
Yeah.
That's sweet. That is so interesting that you have one specific one you can point to. Just because I've had so many times now that I can think of times I've cried. I've laughed to the point of crying, and that's when I think I'm laughing as quote-unquote hard as I can. But that's happened so many times that I think I'm happy going with the general answer of I've had a lot of good times, and there's no specific one I can really point to that really sticks out.
Yeah, I mean, my answer is probably coupled with like, again, that feeling of like looking around and being like, wow, like this is a really great feeling. Like, I love these guys.
Yeah. It's actually a really interesting question. Yeah.
You might not have an answer for this. You probably don't.
Okay.
Who did you take to the Elite Four? Do you know what I mean?
Who did I take to the Elite Four?
Yeah, it's okay if you don't know what I'm talking about. It's a Pokemon thing. In case you played the Pokemon games when you were a kid.
Nick, you know me. Of course I didn't play the Pokemon
I
games.
know you played some video games here and there.
I'm like, is this your attempt at a shitty basketball reference?
Well, okay. What would you want as your last meal?
Classic. I would finish with blueberry cheesecake ice cream. That's a given. Maybe from Salt and Straw, maybe from Molly Moons, because now we live in Seattle, so we're allowed to say that. And they have a really good blueberry cheesecake one right now. It's vegan, just in case you were itching for it. In terms of food, pancakes.
Really? No, I mean, no hate. Just I like waffles more.
That's
I don't know why my instinct was to criticize you there. That's not the point of the podcast. Podcast over, dude. Get out of here.
I didn't realize that, but that's what was going on. No, you have an incorrect last meal.
Yeah, sorry.
I think pancakes with bananas and pecans in them, and like the pancakes are nicely or the bananas are nicely caramelized on the bottom because they're flipped a bit early, so it's yeah, that's nice. I mostly say that because I can't think of anything right now, and I've been eating a lot of those, and they get more delicious every time. Yeah, or else something with shrimp, which is kind of divergent. But shrimp is one of those things where you just feel a little fancy when you're eating it, as long as it's not covered in battered dough.
Yeah. I remember the first time I had shrimp. I remember tasting it and being like, whoa, this is next level food.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
What was the shrimp with?
Just butter and salt. It was literally just shrimp. I made it on a George Foreman grill.
Oh, that's sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Yo! I didn't know you were a griller.
I was.
You were?
I was. But I grew up.
But I grew up.
Yeah, I grew out of my bachelor life. Wait.
Into the Hello Fresh life.
Tell me about yourself.
Tell me about yourself? This is a fucking interview? I think that's actually pretty apt right now, because when I've been looking for kind of the next person in my life, quote unquote, and what's kind of missing, I think it kind of reveals a lot about what you think of yourself as well. So we'll stray a little bit more toward that so I'm definitely looking more for someone who's my adventure buddy right now. Someone who's willing to wake up early, hit the road at 5 a.m., get a shitty coffee, do a hike, save half the coffee for later, and not judge me for really appreciating post-hike lukewarm coffee.
I don't criticize. I'm just curious.
And someone who's willing to just like be spontaneous and do something at a moment's notice, and is excited for the grind, is excited for the type 2 things, like wants to get up, wants to do these things, wants to go and bike Glacier, wants to go and take advantage of opportunities, and like appreciate that life, especially as we get older, like life and free time and days, I won't necessarily say they become numbered, but especially in terms of free time, you obviously can stay single, bachelor, whatever, forever if you want, but I like to think that there's a next stage in life. Yeah, so it's just someone who's, so I guess this translates back to me, just really here to take advantage of opportunities and I think moving forth, thinking of myself as someone who doesn't question the past and doesn't have regrets and doesn't get hung up on things, because that can take you to a real dark place for months on months at a time. And it's just to like not have the ability to hate. Like when you think you've stooped to kind of the lowest point you can hit in life, and you come up from that, then you realize that like everything is just small change, and whatever else is out there. Not sure the answer's supposed to be more jovial than that, but this is just all things that have been processing over the last couple of weeks. Yeah. Oh, and someone who loves trees and loves nature and will hopefully retire to either work at a winery or as a park ranger, and can hopefully retire sooner than later when I marry rich. No.
That actually would be pretty cool.
Oh my gosh.
Retiring, you both work
This
at a winery?
stupid 9-to-5 grind is just, it's so overrated. Yeah. So that might happen sooner than later. But for now, life's just an adventure. Like, my favorite present I've ever gotten, and it's such a small thing, and it's one of the things that I really loved most about my past relationship, was a Christmas present I got that was just a hand-drawn mug that had a little scene played out of like all the road trips we've done and everything, just a couple small drawings, and then just saying life's an adventure with you, like that. And like that of all things, like really hit home the most, as is like, yeah, like this is what life's for. Who gives a shit about the rest, you know? Yeah. So if anyone knows anyone out there who's looking for adventure and is also single, you know where to find me. We'll sales pitch.
Okay, last question. What's something you really like about yourself?
Would you take this kind of physically or character?
What do you want to say?
Well, yeah, but like, would you personally take this physical or character?
Probably character.
Character? Okay. Yeah, that checks. I like... It's so weird to say this because it just feels selfish. It's that old adage about like there are no selfless acts because you feel good about yourself if you do one, so that's selfish. I just like doing things for people, and I like meeting new people, which has helped a lot in Seattle at this point. So I think that's something I've learned about myself since moving up here, that it was terrifying to make friends. It was terrifying to move up here for someone and immediately have that just go bottoms up. But on the other end of that, you learn that it's like, I like about myself that I can put myself out there, and I do like doing things for other people. That might be two things, but say la vie. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like keeping it $150. My life would be totally different if I had met you. Like, I wouldn't have gone on that road trip, and I wouldn't have eventually started hanging out with like Anna and TJ, and then wouldn't have met Jenga, wouldn't have met Romy, Went to hang out with Ed.
I'm so curious if you would have moved up here.
I don't know. I mean, maybe I would have moved up here a lot sooner, right? Like, maybe I would have been like, you know what? I've been living in San Francisco now for 3 years and like not really fitting in. Maybe I'll move up here. Might have a fucking job.
Wow.
So,
fuck.
yeah.
So everything's shit. You're right.
Yeah.
No, but joking in the past, but it is really real. The idea of bringing people together and then not having to really talk to anyone, but like seeing everyone be happy as like the greatest gift. A lot of people laugh at it, but it is so true. Mm-hmm. It is so nice that all of y'all are like such a tight knit group and everything, and just that it started because of good old Sale.
Yeah, Sale.
Sale and me drafting Dutchy, Anna, and you, and then everything just like sprang up from there.
And Karen to an extent.
Oh, and Karen. Yeah. Sure. We got the little like side connectors.
And TJ.
That's so cool. No.
Well, he subbed.
He subbed.
Yeah.
Because he came out with me. But yeah, he didn't start on the team.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
We knew of him at first.
Maybe. Yeah. I won't get into the small things here. Teach, you're welcome.
Sentiment applies.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Well, sweet.
Good times.
We're 7 minutes over, but that's probably fine.
Yeah.
Well, that was pretty sweet. Thanks for being on the Naked French podcast, Rob.
Thanks for having me, Nick.